That's brand music.
No, I mean, you just...
Ooh, did you get that? Answer in a whole sentence.
No, but sometimes people just say no. Could you tell me, before rap came up big, beginning of the 80s, so the end of the 70s, what was going on here with the gangs and with the style and the attitude?
Now, why do you mention the gangs and the style?
Because I think that gangs were probably quite influential on the street style.
Well, when I was living in Brooklyn, about 1975, 76, in Brooklyn, it was predominantly a Jewish neighborhood and a Spanish neighborhood. And the Spanish people that were there, some of them, a small percentage of them, broke off into the gang situation, in which they took their style a lot from the Hells Angels. There was the Savage Skulls, the Young Skulls, the Young Nomads, and so on. So you would have these ripped-off jean jackets and bell-bottom pants with the MC boots, motorcycle boots, but they had no motorcycles. They would be walking around in the street and so on. The style in the early 70s went from that to when rap became a big deal, say around 78. Before rap was on record, the style then was Lee suits. And Lee, as a company, had a major influence on urban style because they had these bell-bottom pants, and all the hip hoppers had the bell-bottom pants with the Adidas or the Pumas on with the jacket. And that was one style around 78, 79. Sometime around 80, 81, the designer jean look began to hit the urban streets. It was probably out before that, but I guess with the disco era and all of that, urban youth started to really get involved in Sassoons, Jordache kind of jeans, having somebody's name on your behind. And that launched this whole idea of straight leg jeans, straight leg. And originally they were worn what we would call high waters. They were worn too short. So you would get the sock, the jean, the sock, and the whole shoe. This then later branched off into more of the punk rockers then took it over, I guess, into like the Huey Lewis and the News kind of suit jacket, high water pants look. And then the hip hoppers took it over into just basically trying to wear fitted clothes, clothes that fit, not the high waters anymore. Just to go off on something else or to bring it to this day and age, what has recently happened is the drug dealers in New York City, when you're out on the street selling drugs, crack or whatever, they had to wear two pairs of pants. They had to wear a smaller pair that fit them, that had the drugs in the pocket and the money, and a bigger pair of pants on the outside of those pants, so when the cops ran up on them, they said, "Look, there's nothing in my pocket." And they searched the pocket, "There's nothing, look, what are you bothering me for?" But then the style became to wear oversized clothing, and it came from this style. This is where it originally came from, at least in my knowledge, of the oversized pants, wearing the pants too big so you can have other things under your clothes and don't look like there's a problem. That's it.
Okay, I would like to stay a little bit again back, end of the 70s, and at that time, before videos were big on TV and before there were really great internationally known stars in the music scene, how did street style develop? Were there like influential breakdancers or writers that would influence the kids on the streets, or how did that work?
Well, fashion has always been a part of lyrics. All lyrics, rock and roll lyrics, jazz, blues. The thing with rap is that I think rap is one of the first art forms that express in their lyrics a wish for certain clothes. Not that I have this on, but I want to wear this. Or I have this on and you want to wear this. Which is like free advertisement for the designer. If your stuff becomes hip in the streets, then some rap artist would write about it, trying to be cool his or herself.
Yeah, but maybe you could tell a little bit more about end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s. Who was influential at that time for style, and what were the specific styles? Can you say something about that, please?
Let me also say that in the early 70s, I was very, very young. And my perspective of fashion is different from Fab Five Freddy's or from Africa Bambaata's, because they were in it from a different perspective. DJ Flowers, I don't know him. I met him, but I don't know him. In the early 70s, what I remember was that fashion was it was more like a statement of who you were. I don't see much respect coming out of it, but it was it was your signature as to who you were. There used to be the nylons. Nylon clothing used to be real big, whereas you used to define a hip hopper, especially a break dancer or graffiti artist, they used to wear a nylon t-shirt with a sleeve, and then over that nylon t-shirt with a sleeve was a tank top nylon t-shirt with a name buckle and Lee jeans and a Kango hat. And you used to say, wow, that's a break dancer, or that's a graffiti artist. The graffiti artists and the break dancers also used to wear hoods. Does this command a certain degree of respect? I don't know, because a rival breakdancing group would not care what you were wearing. They would be like, well, I can outdo you, or you can't outdo me. And, my perspective comes from the poor black urban youth of the 1970s who couldn't afford clothes. And we would look and marvel at how these people actually got these clothes. You say, wow, everybody wants to look good. But we never really paid much attention to respecting a person or looking at anyone, better or worse than what they were because of their clothes. It was a signature as to who you were. Of course, you was the hippest person on the block if you had something new on. Everybody in my neighborhood was poor. We didn't have nothing new, and so the style became poor clothing. That's just the way it was.
Could you define that more closely? Like poor clothing, it means that you're not able to spend a lot of money on clothes, so you would have to maybe get into workwear and...
No. Your mother would be making your clothing for you, and the battle would become whose mother made the best clothes. So moms became the designer for the poor kids. The other kids that can afford clothing, like the rappers and some of the break dancers and so on, who were stars, who were touring the world, they can afford clothing. We couldn't afford it. And so our mothers were making our clothes, or we was borrowing clothes from our friends, and everybody wore everybody clothes and sneakers and hats and shoes. So really, I tell you, it was, we really took interest in the smaller things, like haircuts. Everybody can afford a haircut. So the Caesar back then, what was called the Caesar, was the fashion statement. Not so much the clothes, the hairstyle, the way you cut your mustache or goatee or beard or whatever. The girls with certain braids or, blown out hairstyles, they spend time, they didn't go to the hairdresser. Their mother sat there and did their hair. And the women would come out, young women would come out and You know, the fashion statement would be, my mother spent more time on me than your mother spent on you.
So, but still, could you say something about the functional aspects of clothing? If you were a breaker, you would have to wear more tighter clothes so you could dance properly and nothing would get in your way, or you would have to wear a hood as a graffiti writer. For what purpose? Could you talk a little bit about the functionality of styles?
No, I can't talk much about that because I wasn't a break dancer. And when I got into graffiti art, it wasn't a fashion, there was no more fashion in it. I got into graffiti art around 1984, 85. And by then, there was no more fashion. The fashion in graffiti art was in the 70s, early 80s, 81, 82, that's it. Maybe 83, maybe. 84, 85, 86, you wear regular clothes like this. And, you know, you just did your thing. It was, see, also keep in mind, when I was coming up, the regular guy look was in. He's killing me with the cigarette. Yeah.
What was the regular guy look then at that time for you?
A leather jacket, jeans, and sneakers. This was when Run DMC was wearing the leather blazers, Kango hats, and Adidas. LL Cool J had the sweats, the track suits on, Adidas track suits on Nike track suits, Puma track suits with the Kango. Certain break dancers and other hip hoppers that can afford the clothes were wearing sheepskin coats and Gazelle glasses, British Walker shoes, and this was basically the look of the gangster, the look of the pimp, also the look of the prostitute. It's always the criminal element of society that dictates the fashion to society.
You think so?
Always.
Okay. So
At least in my lifetime.
but well, you know, when the rappers became really big, they started wearing like these really heavy gold chains. And could you say something about the development of that?
That was, look at Isaac Hayes. One of his early albums, I forgot the name of it, but Isaac Hayes is on one of his albums with crazy jewelry on. This was a known thing in the black community. The gangster always had diamond rings, gold watches, jewelry, and some suit or clothes a little beyond the norm. Like not just a suit. He had to have a suit with a fur collar, or he had to have not just a trench coat or a leather coat. His leather coat had to be studded with this and that, always one step beyond. And in my lifetime, it was always been the gangsters, the criminals, so to speak. And I use the word criminals very respectfully. They are the ones who dictate fashion.
Okay. But also, after a while, there came up this more military style. Would you refer this also as a gangster style?
Sure. The United States Army and government are the criminals in our idea of life. Anyone who can kill a person and get away with it. Anyone who has authority, you want to wear the clothes of the authority. The criminal element is the authority on the street. You want to look like the authority. The United States Army is the authority. You want to look like the authority.
Okay. Well, if I understood you right now, you're telling me that there were the gangsters and the rappers that were wearing the influential clothes that were setting the style, and the kids didn't have the money to pick that up.
Right.
But still, there was something that came through to the streets. Kids tried to imitate, or
Well, let me say this. A lot of kids could afford the clothes. I couldn't afford the clothes, and the people I was hanging out with could not afford the clothes. Church Avenue and East 35th Street in Flatbush, Brooklyn we couldn't afford the clothes. You know, that's what it was. But a lot of kids could afford the clothes. A lot of kids had working parents that could easily afford the clothes. And they would get their children these clothes. And, you know, it wasn't everybody. The ones that couldn't afford the clothes like us would simply blot it out of our minds. Matter of fact, I want to stand up.
Okay, no problem.
You might have to change your lighting.
I will continue with another question, okay?
Okay.
Okay, talking about you again, then there came a time for you also when you earned more money, and how did your style change from that?
Well, for me, when I acquired more money, see, my thing of acquiring more money, I also acquired more education. And with the acquiring of education, I didn't really spend a lot of my money on clothing. I've always been a kind of a plain kind of person. However, on stage, I did get into this idea of wearing leathers with bright colors and this kind of thing for staging. Having studied metaphysics for a while, or what is known as the occult sciences for a while, I know the sciences of color, chromopathy, or chromologic or whatever, chromatical logic. And my thing in particular is certain colors give certain effects to people that look at them. So I wear colors that give off a certain psychological meaning that I want to give off. Green, for instance, is a sedative to the eyes, calm, cool, collective. A bright green, however, can be irritating to the eyes, but can also give excitement. Bright colors make you breathe more without you even knowing. Bright colors also make the heart rate go up. Your blood pressure goes up. Dimmer colors, obviously sedative, cools you down. If you know about colors, when you're on stage, you try to balance certain colors based on the songs you're going to do or what you want out of the crowd. So for me, when I got more money in this business, I began to apply my education to my clothing. For me, I never really was the one to run out and get what the latest fashion was. It just wasn't me.
Well, but Fab Five Freddy told me today that there was this designer up in Harlem. He was very famous.
Yes.
His name
Dapper
was
Dan.
Dapper Dan, right? He told me you would go there to get
Sure.
your suits tailored. Tell me something about him.
Well, with Dapper Dan, he would have the fake Gucci, fake Fendi, this kind of thing, which was in style uptown Harlem because, once again, the drug dealers were wearing it. I went to Dapper Dan not to get the fashion style, not Fendi or Gucci. I went just to get some clothes cut, tailor-made clothes cut. That's it. He was good at making a hip-hop fashion, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want name brand stuff. I always was interested in making my own statement on my own, and that's what I did.
You said he made hip-hop fashion. How would you define that?
He made street fashion, meaning that there's a certain way a jacket is cut. It's a certain way big clothing, it fits you. There's a certain way a hat is worn that Macy's and Sears just doesn't have. They haven't caught up to it yet. Now, with the introduction of Carl Kanai and the imitation of Tommy Hilfiger and a few of the other designers, hip-hop fashion is becoming mainstream. But when I was buying clothing, well, I still do buy clothing, but when I was buying clothing in that era of Dapper Dan and after that, you couldn't go to Macy's and Sears or Alexander's or one of the big department stores and get the clothes that you saw everybody else with. You had to go to like 6 different stores to create one style. And it's just so recently now that you can go to one store and get what you had to go to 6 stores to get. So Dapper Dan used to cut clothing in the one style. He would make you a shirt that fit the way you wanted it to fit, with the pocket where you wanted the pocket to be. And he would make your jacket to go with that, and your pants to go with that, and he would make your shoes if you wanted to.